Hi, I'm Daisy Mack, and this is Spiritual Mixtape. And on today's episode, I am exploring my journey with burnout, how it has transformed my life, but most importantly, I'm sharing some sneaky signs of when burnout's approaching that I wish I'd known, and also some suggestions on what you can do if these signs are resonating with you. So I don't talk about burnout as often as I should because I am still on my journey with it. And for a long time, I felt a little angry about burnout. Truly, I felt angry with burnout because it took so much from me. It took my whole identity was built around my job, and that is not a healthy place to be in. But that was the truth for me. And when burnout came along, all of those parts of me disappeared overnight. And it's terribly humbling when that happens. But in the midst of all that loss, as I figured out how to rebuild myself, I realized who I was underneath it all. I still don't wish this on anybody, though. There are easier ways to find out who you are. But this was my journey, and I know that it is particularly resonant at the moment because I've been asked about it 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks. I think this could be just the place that we're at after COVID. My age, I'm 40. There could be just that being 40, just at that point where you're questioning how hard you've worked and what you've achieved for it. But you can only be you. This is something that my dad said to me, and it's something my friend Lola reminded me that I say and that my dad had told me. And it was a real healing moment when I remembered those words that my dad said to me. You can only be you, because I was lying. It was in the middle of the afternoon in the house in Palos Verdes. If you don't know where that is, it's a peninsula over on the other side of Los Angeles, or like the furthest part away of Los Angeles. Very beautiful, but constant like earthquakes and mudslides and stuff. But I was in the bedroom having a cry, and I realized that all that was left was me. And I do also remember thinking, well, if I don't like who I am now, this is going to be really tough. I need to really begin to like myself, because that's all I've got. And I do really wish my dad was still here so I could ask him why you can only be you resonated with him. Like what loss had he gone through? And I mean, I could think of, some things. Dad went bankrupt. Dad had a first marriage that broke down. You can only be you. I wonder what made him tell me that over and over again. He used to tell my sister too, you can only be you. You can only be you. And honestly, those words were a turning point and a healing point for me in the burnout, because actually, if after all of this, there's still me underneath it all, well, maybe we can build, again, a little bit of an optimism, or optimistic. Maybe you can build again. So I'm not quite at the stage yet where I can tell you, like, with eloquence, what burnout truly did for me. I know in my heart and my soul that I'm changed for the better. but I don't have that selling point. My friend Marissa, I'll link her podcast into the show notes as well, said to me, tell your story over and over again. And in the midst of that, when you can tell it well, that's when you know that you've healed from the burnout. And it's lit a spark under me today. And it also because I think 3 people reached out to me on Instagram and asked me about like my experience with burnout in the last couple of weeks. So how has it transformed me? Well, when this podcast comes out, Friday the 3rd, my 10-year wedding anniversary. And that's an achievement. You know, all relationships, whether it's a work one, a friendship, or a romantic relationship, take time and energy in the same way that, you know, these trees needed time and the energy of the sun to grow. Good, strong, healthy relationships need time and energy. Being in a marriage and a partnership for 10 years, I'm proud of that. And I think old Daisy would be terribly proud of that too. But also on a work tip, on Friday the 3rd, we will be, I want to say, a little shy of 8 months into the podcast. And 10 episodes of the podcast will be going on to British Airways in-flight entertainment. And that's such a dream for me. I'm sorry, James, that I didn't cry about our anniversary. But it is such an achievement because when I moved to LA, I remember that first flight. And I came on my own because I started my job before James came with me. And I had a double-decker, which is an English chocolate bar. And I felt so tearful in the airport. And just like getting on the plane and, you know, like I was looking for things to entertain me on the in-flight entertainment. And I did like Headspace. I think it was Headspace. I'm pretty sure it was Headspace and not Calm on the flight. So to think that 8.5 years later, and like such a tough journey with burnout, and really like not knowing who I was or who I was going to be without that job and that identity. And now I get to share meditation with all of you. Oh my gosh, I'm such a sop. Well, I hope that if you're experiencing burnout, please let my story be a sign to you that you can go through it all and come out the other side with a whole new career that is just as successful and if not better than anything you had before. That literally anything is possible. Okay. So, sneaky signs of burnout, okay? These were my sneaky signs. These were the things that were really... I wish I'd understood that these things were warning signs, that they were little red flags. And I call them sneaky because they're really easy to ignore. Now, the first one is colds and flu. If you have a cold all the time and if you have an achy body, like you've got the flu, that is a sign that you are experiencing high levels of cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Now, cortisol is a chemical reaction in the body when you are triggered into the stress response. So that is fight, flight, or freeze. When your body is literally charging you up so that you can either fight your way out of a stressful situation, fly your way out of a stressful situation, or freeze. It's giving you enough energy, enough gumption to do that. And when you live with high cortisol levels, and you live under total stress and pressure all the time, when you don't switch off, the cortisol levels suppress your immune system. So you're actually living with a lowered immune system for prolonged periods. So that is the thing that affects your sleep. But it's also the reason why you've constantly got sniffles, why you've got an achy back. It's a chemical reaction in your body to the high levels of cortisol. Now, also linked to high levels of cortisol, this is more of an emotional one, but if you've gone from being cool, calm and collected to suddenly being like snappy, like really snappy, like maybe you've always been a tad snappy or lacked a little patience with people, but when you go from being able to take a beat before you respond to something that's annoying to wanting to bite someone's head off, that is also high cortisol. When the cortisol levels are high, we become more irritable. So if your colleagues have suddenly become really annoying, if you're not able to keep your opinion to yourself, if you really need to immediately bite at somebody, that is another warning sign of approaching burnout. And then this one really is very poignant for me, but I honestly didn't realize this when I was experiencing it. But I had always thought that my superpower was how much volume I could take on at work. And if you've gone from being able to handle huge amounts of volume to being completely like procrastinating on the smallest task, that is another sign of burnout. So if you're experiencing one of these or multiple of these, even if you're just experiencing like a period of not being able to sleep, that is a warning sign, an early red flag to burnout. And these are my 3 suggestions on what you can do next to help alleviate the physical symptoms, but also help to navigate your way out of burnout. So my first suggestion is to set some boundaries around your work. Say no to additional work, especially if when you attend to more work, you are unable to take care of yourself. You need to begin to say yes to your self-care. Saying yes to your self-care is a different form of boundary. Saying no to work, another form of boundary. Saying yes to yourself and how you care for yourself, a really important boundary. If you can and if you feel safe, you should talk to your supervisor, to your colleagues, to ensure that your boundaries are not crossed. My second suggestion is to double down on your community and where you seek support. Make sure that the people that you are seeking support from are sympathetic to you and make you feel safe. If you don't feel like you have those people yet, start to seek them out. And like I said, I'm going to drop my friend Lola's show, her podcast, into the show notes, and also my friend Marissa's show into the show notes. Especially Marissa is incredible with burnout. The next suggestion I have for you is to take care of your mental health. And old Daisy would be terribly irritated by that whole comment. But it's so important. You must start to find your yoga, your breath work, your meditation, whatever it is that is going to resonate with you. And you've got to start to live by it. You've got to start to make it part of your everyday. You've got to heal. You've got to pour into you. I know none of this is easy, and I am really sorry if you're going through it. I would love to hear from you and share any resources that I have available to help you go through burnout. As someone who has survived and actually thrived out of it, things will get better.